We are going to now go ahead and demonstrate how to apply relationships in Microsoft Project. In other words, how we actually create links in Microsoft Project. I have gone ahead and created a simple project. As you can see there, that electrical design is the first task in this project, and its ID is 2. The other thing I want you to note is in the predecessor column, which is right next to the finish column, there are no links. And as a result, of course, our Gantt chart does have some sequence, but it doesn't really have proper sequence. And it certainly is not forming that typical Gantt chart schedule. The first method I want to teach you is simply where we are going to put in the ID of the predecessor on the successor. So can you see that tender process is the next task, so to say, after electrical design. And so it must start after electrical design is finished. And we can simply put in the predecessor column the ID of its predecessor, which is electrical design, and type in 2 and enter. Very simple, straightforward way of doing it. And it is certainly one of the methods. Notice I'm not putting a predecessor onto electrical design because it is the first task. It will automatically take the start date of the project, which is the 4th of March 2024, and it doesn't need to be dependent on anything. So just leave that cell there blank. The next task, which is tender adjudication, cannot start until tender process has finished. And again, we are going to put a finish to start relationship onto tender adjudication, and I'm going to teach us a different method. Now, this method is where you select the predecessor, which is tender process, hold down your Control key on your keyboard, and then select the successor, in other words, the task that you're putting the link onto, which in this case is tender adjudication. And you'll know that you selected them in the correct order because tender process predecessor is gray and the tasks see-through. And now you simply go to the task menu up at the top, hover your mouse over selected tasks. If you hover your mouse, you'll see the little note of what it is comes up. It's a picture of 2 little chains, and simply click on it. And there you'll see immediately that tender adjudication now has the predecessor of tender process. Now, I do want you to just have a look at your Gantt chart. First of all, tender process was pushed out to the 27th of May because that comes after electrical design is finished, and tender adjudication has been pushed out to the 24th of June, which comes after tender process, which ended on the 21st of June. So can you see we're developing our Gantt chart by putting in the correct links? And one more method that I want to show you, it's a user-friendly method. It also is a method where you can change the type of relationship and add a lag on if you so desire. First of all, tender award can only happen once tender process and tender adjudication is finished. So we want to put tender adjudication on as a predecessor. And how do we do that? Well, this method is where we double-click on tender award, and that opens up the task information of that selected task. And one of the options in the menu is to click on the predecessor. So click on the predecessor. Under the word task name, click in that cell, click on the drop down, and that opens up all of the possible tasks that could be linked in from the project. What we're looking for, of course, is tender adjudication. Click on tender adjudication. Now notice you have the option to change the relationship type. It comes in automatically, it's finished to start, but if you click on that cell, click on the drop down, you'll see that you have all of the options of linking, start to start, finish to finish, start to finish. But we'll keep it as a finish to start for the moment. And then in the next column, we have the lag, which is where you can bring a delay or a lead in. And let's put a lag in of 1 week. And then we click on OK. And let's have a look at how this has affected the Gantt chart. Well, we'll see that tender award is now starting on the 12th of July, and its predecessor tender adjudication is finishing on the 5th of July. Now, well, the 5th of July is a Friday, so we add a weekend on and then another week because of the lag, and we now start on the 12th of July. And we would carry on exactly as we have been going until the end, and you'll eventually find a finish date. And that finish date would then be submitted to the client and they would approve, hopefully. If not, you'd have to go in and maybe look for ways so that you can shorten the schedule. And then if they approve, you would baseline the schedule.